Assalamu alaikum, welcome back, and thank you for joining Shaded's Ramadan series, where we're extracting the beautiful lessons from Surah Yusuf alayhi salam, which leads me to the 10th lesson, which is offering advice and receiving criticism. Oh my God, you're probably thinking offering advice, oh my God, I'm not going to tell nobody nothing. And receiving criticism, I don't want anybody to tell me anything. But when it comes to giving advice, the concept of Naseeha is very deep rooted in our culture, in our tradition, even in the Islamic tradition. And Naseeha is often though misunderstood entirely, or it's incorrectly applied in many circumstances where people just throw it out and end up hurting people's feelings or even pushing people away. But it usually is translated to sincere advice. And though this is a fairly accurate translation, it still doesn't do justice for the deeper meaning when we talk about Naseeha itself. Now, when it comes to the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam, in a desperate attempt to convince their father to permit them to take Yusuf alayhi salam out with them so they can actually implement the plan that they have in throwing him into the well, say with a false conviction, where in Surah Yusuf verse 11, the last part of the verse says, وَإِنَّهُ لَنَاصِحُونَ. And this means we truly wish him well. So the word for well-wishers is used as nasihun, is mentioned in the verse, shares the same root as nasiha, which literally means to wish good for someone. Actually, the Arabs would use this same word to describe the process of purifying honey, signifying that giving nasiha to someone requires a pure heart and sincere intent to bring out the good for them. Now, when we talk about the brothers of Yusuf alayhi salam, they were not well-wishers for Yusuf and they were not sincere to Yusuf alayhi salam. So taking from this, we find that nowadays individuals impart advice to others or do things under the gesture of nasiha, though it's not really good advice. It's not sincere advice, or the person, how they relay that is come out wrong. So usually advice is quite often referred to put someone to shame or to make someone feel better about themselves. Our job with nasiha is none of the above. Our job is to really have good intents and want goodness for that person when we actually lead to the point of giving that advice, giving that nasiha. But if that nasiha is to kind of judge a person or embarrass a person or put down a person, then that is not considered nasiha. As we see many times in our communities, people that go to masajid or things like this, and someone just comes out of nowhere and throws out a bit of advice for them. This, we don't know the intent of that person. And yes, maybe they did have good intent, but it came out wrong, or vice versa. But regardless, we should know the etiquettes of giving advice so we do not push anyone away, and we extract the true meaning of nasiha is by bettering someone and giving them good advice that will be helpful to them. But because people are usually utilizing it to float their own boat and put down somebody else, people do not accept the nasiha very well, and they actually close the door to it. And now it is made it a norm in our communities that we could barely talk to each other, we could barely advise each other. Even friends and family members do not want to confront each other and help guide each other because they don't want it to come out the wrong way, or they don't want the other to perceive it in the wrong way. And this is very dangerous, as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said, ad-deen an-nasiha, that the religion is about nasiha. It's true advice and guidance. As we see, the Quran is all sincere advice from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in guiding us to being the best that we can be, protecting us from different things that we have no clue of or aware of. But the same thing when it's between each other, we should want that clarity and that goodness for one another. Now, before offering advice, we should always evaluate whether this advice will be of some benefit or not. We should always reflect, Is what I'm about to say going to bring about a benefit, or it's going to bring about harm? And this is said about giving and receiving advice. What about criticism? So we talked about advice, but what about criticism? Criticism is also something we should brace ourselves to hear in life. We shouldn't close the door for people to critique us and to give us feedback, positive, constructive feedback, which means there are pros and cons to each and every one of us. And when we go through anything, we want criticism and we want to open the door for hearing criticism in order for us to improve ourselves. So even the best of people, the messengers themselves, were criticized by their ummah about their mission. They were criticized and they accepted criticism. Even it is important to also understand how to respond to criticism, irrespective of the form that it comes. So I always used to be in the community, and I used to always volunteer, and I used to always go into the different organizations and the different masajid. And yes, sometimes people would say something of an advice to me. And yes, I also experienced people that were very nice and very gentle, while minimally I did experience people that were very aggressive and came to me in a harsh way. Now, what I learned though is I tried to extract the lesson, not how it was delivered. I tried to extract the criticism, not how it was delivered. Because if I only focused at the delivery, then I probably wouldn't have taken any criticism. Because majority of people don't know how to criticize people. They come with a natural instinct of guiding and advising, but it comes out wrong and ends up pushing people away. Now, many modern psychologists mention that there are ultimately 3 different types of criticism. 1 being destructive, 2 being irrelevant, and 3rd being constructive. And the first 2 types are usually a form of personal attacks. They are destructive and they're irrelevant. They're careless statements and words that we shouldn't be paying any attention to. But the 3rd is the one that we should focus on, which is the only type of criticism that we should welcome and most definitely take on board. That means we have to listen and take interest in it. Constructive criticism shares the same basis as Naseeha. This is exactly what we're looking for, as it is sincere and points out improvements a person needs to factor into their life. And we all are imperfect and we all have mistakes. And sometimes we do things intentionally and unintentionally. And that's where Naseeha is very important to help us grow into being better versions of ourselves. Now, some of the righteous scholars in the past would welcome constructive criticism to such a degree that they would go as far as saying, "May Allah bless the one who has gifted me the ability to see my faults." Like, this is what the prominent scholars used to love out of people that would come and advise them. Nowadays, nobody wants advice. Nobody wants anyone to tell them what they're doing wrong. But they had a different mindset and they had a different goal in mind. And they used to pray for the people that would actually come to them because they considered it as a gift that you came and gifted them with advising them of something that they were doing wrong. You brought their faults to light so that they can fix it. Because it was a key area of development for them. Now, is this a key area of development for us? Do we really want to improve ourselves? Do we really want to know our flaws and our faults in order to improve on them? Or do we want to act like we're oblivious to it? We don't want anyone to tell us about it, and we're not going to do anything to change it. The lesson today is about giving advice and taking criticism. So we have to incorporate this in our life. And no matter who we are and what position we carry, no matter how knowledgeable we are, we still have room for improvement. So please, please, please open the door of giving that generous, sincere, well-intended advice to others around you because you love them, right? And you want the khair and the goodness for them, but also open the door for criticism where people can approach you to showing you and highlighting certain things that you need improvement on. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those who are sincere and give sincere advice and guidance to others, wishing well for them while opening the door of criticism to shed light on our faults or our flaws so we can improve on them. Please stay tuned and follow Shaded for more life lessons from Surah Yusuf alayhi salam. Jazakum Allah kull khair for your time and have a blessed day.